to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Alma, and good afternoon to all our viewers. I'm Esther Odanga, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. The Department of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that 13 Filipinos from Ukraine have departed the Warsaw Chopin Airport and arrived in Manila Tuesday night.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday branded his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin a dictator facing withering economic and diplomatic isolation for invading neighboring Ukraine, and warned the world is in a battle between democracy and autocracy.
President Duterte said he's worried about the resurgence of illegal drugs, hoping his successor would continue his campaign against the drug menace.
And the 7th ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC Dialogue, took place online at 17th of February this year to discuss the findings and recommendations in the ASEAN Business Sentiment Study.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that 13 Filipinos from Ukraine have departed the Warsaw Chopin Airport to arrive Manila on Tuesday night. The group was part of the 40 evacuees who left Kiev for Lviv and was welcomed by Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. at the Poland-Ukraine border. Take a look.
13 po sila. Ito yung pangalawang batch namin. At ngayon, masayang-masaya sila. They're really looking forward to going home and to being reunited with their families. So, confirmed na po na nandun sila, en route sila to the Philippines to reunite with their families. At yun po ang aming masasabi kasi nga talagang ito yung second group namin na talagang hinatid ni Secretary Locsin. Sinalubong pala ni Secretary Locsin dito sa border.
The Philippine Embassy in Warsaw facilitated their travel and flight documents as well as their stay in a hotel in the Polish capital. All the repatriation expenses, including transport expenses from Kiev to Warsaw, food and accommodation in Lviv and Warsaw, reverse transcription, polymerase chain reaction or RT-PCR test, and airfare to Manila were likewise shouldered by the DFA's Assistance to Nationals Fund. This batch will bring to 19 the total number of Filipinos to be repatriated since tensions started in Ukraine. The first 6 arrived in Manila on February 18.
The chairperson of the House Committee on Economic Affairs on Tuesday joined the call for the special session to discuss the measures suspending the excise tax on petroleum products, as the Philippines will be amongst those that will be badly affected by the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine. AAMB's OWA party list Representative Sharon Darin said the Russia-Ukraine crisis would not only have a cascading effect on the prices of oil and basic commodities, but on many industries that are still recovering from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. She said she's in favor of having a special session of both Congress and the Senate to discuss the measures on suspending the excise tax on oil. We are in extraordinary circumstances triggered by the war. She said business are still in the process of trying to gain traction back after the 2 years of economic downturn. Garin commended that the measures undertaken by the Development Budget Coordination Committee, or DBCC, and the Department of Transportation, such as the 2.5 billion peso worth of funds for fuel vouchers for affected sectors, as well as Department of Agriculture's 500 million peso budget for affected farmers and fisher folk. In a statement, DBCC said that government remains ready to provide targeted relief assistance and support to the affected sectors, especially the public utility vehicle drivers, farmers, and fisher folks to cushion the impact of high prices.
Singapore will impose sanctions on Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, including blocking financial transactions and the export of items that can be used as weapons against Ukrainians, according to the government on Monday. The Asian city-state joins others, including the U.S., EU, Britain, Canada, Japan, Australia, and Taiwan, in imposing economic sanctions against Russia as global leaders seek to ramp up pressure on the Kremlin. Singapore rarely imposes sanctions on other countries without a decision from the United Nations Security Council. Minister for Foreign Affairs Vivian Balakrishnan told Parliament. But given the unprecedented gravity of Russia's attack, he said Singapore intends to act in concert with many other like-minded countries to impose appropriate sanctions and restrictions against Russia. Balakrishnan also cited Russia's blocking of a draft Security Council resolution deploring its aggression in Ukraine as a reason for the move. Singapore will impose export controls on items that can be used as weapons to harm Ukrainians and block certain Russian banks and financial transactions connected to Russia. Specific measures are being worked out and will be announced soon, according to Mr. Balakrishnan. Singapore Airlines, the city-state flag carrier, also announced Monday that it has suspended flights between Singapore and Moscow due to operational reasons. Most EU airlines, including Air France, have suspended their flights to Russian airports or through Russian airspace, and the European Union has closed its airspace to Russian aircraft.
Meanwhile, Brent crude broke above $110 a barrel on Wednesday, and WTI was up more than 5% as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continued to fan fears over supplies of the crucial commodity from the resource-rich region. Brent climbed 4.88% to $110.09, while WTI was up 5.06% at 108.64. Both are at more than 7 years high. Vladimir Putin's incursion into the neighboring country has seen world powers impose strict, far-reaching sanctions on Moscow in retaliation, fueling worries that exports from Russia will be cut off. Russia is the world's third biggest oil producer.
Meanwhile, the United States will release 30 million barrels of oil from its strategic petroleum reserve as part of an international effort to stabilize the market after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That, according to President Joe Biden in his State of the Union address. Take a look.
Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world. America will lead that effort, releasing 30 million barrels of our own strategic petroleum reserve. And we stand ready to do more if necessary, united with our allies.
In a related news, U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday branded his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, a dictator facing withering economic and diplomatic isolation for invading neighboring Ukraine, and warned the world is in a battle between democracy and autocracy. Take a look.
To all Americans, I'll be honest with you, as I always promised I would be. A Russian dictator invading a foreign country has cost around the world. And I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy and that we use every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers. Putin's latest attack on Ukraine was premeditated and totally unprovoked. He rejected repeated efforts at diplomacy. He thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond. He thought he could divide us at home, in this chamber, in this nation. He thought he could divide us in Europe as well. But Putin was wrong. We are ready. We are united, and that's what we did. We stayed united. The battle between democracy and autocracies. Democracies are rising to the moment, and the world is clearly choosing the side of peace and security. This is the real test, and it's going to take time. So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people. Let me be clear. Our forces are not engaged and will not engage in the conflict with Russian forces in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies in the event that Putin decides to keep moving west.
Biden went on to announce a ban on all Russian aircraft from U.S. airspace, adding the United States to Canada, and a host of European nations closing airspace to Russian airliners and other aircraft in response to the invasion of Ukraine. Taking aim at Russian oligarchs and corrupt leaders who Biden said have built millions of dollars off Putin's regime, the U.S. president delivered a stern warning that the West will seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, and their private jets.
Meanwhile, Russian troops will carry out an attack on what they said was the infrastructure of Ukraine's intelligence services in Kiev and urge residents living nearby to leave, that according to the Defense Ministry, in order to suppress information attacks on Russia. The technological infrastructure of the SBU, or Ukraine Security Service, and the 72nd Main PSO, or Psychological Operations Unit, center in Kiev will be hit with high-precision weapons, according to Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov. He said, "We call on Kiev residents living near relay nodes to leave their homes," Konashenkov added. His statement comes as Russian troops are now ramping up efforts to take Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Ukrainian authorities have accused the Russian army of carrying out strikes on residential areas in several cities, including the eastern city of Kharkiv, where fierce fighting is taking place. Russia said it does not target civilians.
Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have sought shelter abroad as the country's neighbors continue to keep their borders open. The UN Refugee Agency, or UNHCR, said on Monday. Take a look.
We know children have been killed. We know that thousands and thousands are at risk. And we know that more children gut-wrenchingly are going to die or be injured in this unless fighting ends. And right now we see an escalation across those cities. So we are going to send. That's part of that. We are going to see more children separated from families, more fathers handing children across the border guards in Poland. The support of everyday Ukrainians has been extraordinary. I see grandmothers cooking food on the road. I see people offering a bed to those at the train station. You know, teenage girls making cookies and knocking on car doors to offer them to people who've come and spent 3 days coming the 500 kilometres from Kiev. Right now, our support focuses on those people going to the border, heavy support going into Poland and Romania. We have trucks as we speak getting to the border in Poland and Romania with emergency healthcare, sanitation, education support. And as I say, psychological support. The essential aim is to expand that support across Ukraine. We need that support now because the conflict has gone out of the east. We need that to be across the other major cities.
We're concerned about reports of attacks on health. We have received several unconfirmed reports of attacks on hospitals, health infrastructure. But only the attack on 24 February has been verified.
At least 600,000 people fled Ukraine in the past 5 days, following the start of military operations and the escalation in hostilities. There are also an estimated 470,000 third country nationals in Ukraine, including a large number of overseas students and labour migrants.
At this rate, the situation looks set to become Europe's largest refugee crisis this century, and UNHCR is mobilising resources to respond as quickly and effectively as possible.
With regard to the situation that may be happening on the borders, that's clearly something to be monitored, but I think the call would be that everyone should be allowed to enter without discrimination based on race or ethnicity. Most of these casualties were caused by the use of explosive weapons with a wide impact area, as I said earlier, and this includes shelling from heavy artillery and multiple launch rocket systems and airstrikes. No discrimination on the basis.
Indonesian Foreign Affairs Minister Retno Marsudi informed that 99 Indonesian citizens, or WNI, have been evacuated from Ukraine so far. A total of 99 WNI have left Ukraine. The number has included the 5 WNI who were conducting self-evacuation, she said during a press briefing on Tuesday. In addition to the WNI, the government has evacuated 4 foreigners who were related to the Indonesian, she added. The first evacuees, the minister said, 25 who were evacuated from Odessa, Ukraine, arrived in Bucharest, Romania on February 27 at 4:30 p.m. local time. All of the evacuees were well, she informed. However, one of them had tested positive for COVID. Currently, the person is being treated, she added. During the government's second evacuation, 6 Indonesians and 1 foreigner who is related to one of the WNIs were evacuated from Lviv, Ukraine, according to Ms. Marsudi. They arrived at the Indonesian embassy in Warsaw's safe house in Rzeszów, Poland on February 27 at 8:45 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, in the third evacuation, 4 Indonesian citizens as well as 2 foreigners who were spouses of the WNI were picked up by a team from the Indonesian embassy in Warsaw from Lviv, Ukraine, and brought to Poland.
Defense Minister General T. Ban said yesterday that Cambodia may consider sending blue helmet troops to Ukraine if the country and United Nations declare that there will be no more fighting with Russia. He added that Cambodia sends blue helmet troops on missions abroad under the auspices of the UN, which are non-war locations or areas that require peacekeeping forces. Cambodia has never sent blue helmet troops to countries at war. Government spokesman Pai Sipan said the position of the government has always been to support and protect peace, and Cambodia does not join forces in the fight against any country, and Cambodia will not send troops to serve the interest of any country. He added Cambodia may consider sending blue helmet troops to help Ukraine if Ukraine and the United Nations declare that it is peaceful and that there will be no more fighting with Russia, and Cambodian army will help set up infrastructure, clear mines in affected areas, and assist in humanitarian work.
On the 6th day of fighting in Ukraine since Russia invaded, airstrikes on a government building and a residential block in Kharkiv killed at least 18 people. Residents and soldiers in Kiev prepare for another assault as a 65-kilometer long Russian military convoy draws nearer, and a strike on a television tower kills at least 5 people and interrupts broadcasting. And people continue to flee into neighboring countries, with the United Nations counting nearly 680,000 refugees, around half of them into Poland. Let's take a look back.
We think that it's the last safe day in Kiev. Not sure, but it's in my sensation. And we prefer to keep our children and to move them in the safe place. A more safe place than Kiev.
ракета у центральну площу – це відвертий, нічим не прикритий терор. Ніхто не пробачить, ніхто не забуде. Цей удар по Харкову є воєнним злочином. Це є державним тероризмом Російської Федерації. Терор направлений на те, щоб зламати нас, щоб зламати наш спротив. Вони йдуть в нашу столицю так само, як і на Харків. Тому оборона столиці сьогодні – це ключовий пріоритет для держави. В усіх містах Україна повинна зробити усе можливе, щоб зупинити ворога.
Meanwhile, some 141 Filipinos are still in war-torn Ukraine as intense fighting in the country rages 7 days since Russia's invasion, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, said Wednesday. Of this number, 45 are in the capital, Kiev, 55 are near the Hungarian border, and the others are spread across Ukraine. At least 87 seafarers are also on board ships docked near the country. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Sara Lu Ariola said many Filipinos are still hesitant to go home, some of whom refuse to separate from their Ukrainian family, while some opted to stay with their employers. But she said the Philippines would continue monitoring them to ensure their safety and extend aid, including evacuation support when requested.
And the news continues. They're on ASEAN in Focus. Esther and I will be back right after this.
Mr. Pwede! Bawal kang lumabas ng bahay kung dala mo yung nasa tagiliran mo! Mr. Bawal, ito? Protection lang to! Di mo kailangan yan! At higit sa lahat, bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pagdadala ng deadly weapon sa araw ng eleksyon ay isang election offense.
Mr. Bawal, kala ko ba bawal magdala? Eh ano yung nasa tagiliran mo? Eto ba? Merienda lang to. Nakakagutom din kayang bumoto. Gusto mo? Ako si Mr. Bawal. Nagpapaalala sa inyo na ang delikadong kargada sa eleksyon. Hoy! Bawal yan!
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Karapatan natin lahat na iboto ang karapat-dapat! Tama! Lahat ng Pilipino pwedeng bumoto!
Kung rehistrado ka.
Ha?
Ang lahat ng Pilipinong rehistrado lamang ang maaaring bumoto. 1 taon ang ibinibigay ng Commission on Elections para magparehistro ang mga Pilipinong boboto sa darating na eleksyon. Kailangan gawin ito para maiwasan ang tinatawag na flying voters. Teka, lahat ba kayo nagparehistro na?
Opo! Rehistrado na kami lahat!
Bakit tahimik ka? Hindi ka nakapagrehistro, no?
Nakakalimutan ko.
Hindi ka pwedeng bumoto. Mabuti pa, bumili ka na lang ng balot.
Pagka kami pa bumili ng balot, pwede na kami bumoto.
Hindi, pero mabubusog ka. Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
President Duterte said he's worried about the resurgence of illegal drugs, and he's hoping his successor would continue his campaign against the drug menace. Let's listen in.
There was this alarm. He was the one who issued the alarm with a missing daughter. Then it was found out that he raped the child, his daughter, killed her, at tinago niya doon sa imborna sa likod ng bahay niya. Ito yung it simply drives me crazy. Itong mga ito na putulan yung ulo ng asawa mo, and it is happening every day. It has been there since the inception of the drug problem. Never mind about the ICC. Wala akong pakialam dyan. Does not worry me a bit, you know. But itong sa drugs, I just hope that somebody, maybe kung hindi yung talagang presidente, would find the resolve to just continue with the drive against drug, because I said it will destroy our country. It will really destroy our country. At you know, lahat tayo we're getting old. As a matter of fact, we're about to make the exit na. Ang problema is the next generation. You have to protect the next generation, because if not, then they will have a serious problem in their hands.
In his report to President Duterte, Department of the Interior and Local Government Secretary Eduardo Año said, based on the latest report, the law enforcers have arrested 1,658 individuals and confiscated 159 million pesos worth of illegal drugs in 1,230 anti-illegal drug operations.
Singapore's top court was Tuesday urged to show mercy as it heard the last-ditch appeal of a Malaysian man facing execution despite criticism from supporters who say he is mentally disabled. Take a look.
I think the developments are very disheartening. We will continue to campaign, especially because the court has indicated that presidential clemency is probably Nagin's only hope. That is the direction in which we will probably keep pushing for. But, you know, his family has been very clear that there is no such thing as false hope for them, because to them it means a lot to extend his life for as long as they can, and for them to know and believe that they have done every possible thing, whether through the legal mechanisms or through the clemency mechanisms, through public campaigning. So I think to them it is really important that they and us do everything in our power till the very last moment. Yeah, so now I spoke to Nagin for a few minutes after the hearing, and he is making a plea to the government, to the society, to the president, to give him another chance. He wants another chance mostly for the sake of his family, because he's very concerned about the trauma to them if he's executed. And he says that if he is given another chance, he will do everything he can to be of service to society.
Nagentran K. Darmalingam was arrested in 2009 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into the city-state, which has some of the world's toughest drug laws, and handed a then-mandatory death sentence the following year. He was finally scheduled to be hanged in November, but the plan sparked criticism due to the concerns he has intellectual disabilities, with the European Union and British billionaire Richard Branson among those condemning it. The 34-year-old lodged a final appeal, and after several delays, Singapore's Court of Appeal on Tuesday heard the challenge. His lawyer Violet Neto argued that executing someone who is mentally disabled runs counter to international law. She urged the judges to show mercy by allowing Nagentran to undergo an independent assessment, and asked for the defense to be given time to find psychiatrists to conduct the examination. But prosecutor Wong Moon Kwong opposed the move and said the defense was seeking to delay proceedings, accusing them of abusing the process of this court. Tuesday's proceeding ended without a verdict being issued, and a ruling will be handed down at a later date, which is still to be decided.
At least 13 people were killed, 4 others missing after a tourist boat capsized Saturday in bad weather off the coast of Hoi An, a World Heritage listed Vietnamese city, according to an official. The accident occurred as the vessel carrying 39 local tourists and crew members was returning to Hoi An from Coo Lao Cham Island, a popular spot for diving, snorkeling, and water sports. Local Communist Party Chief Nguyen Sin confirmed 13 people drowned and 4 were missing. He said rescue efforts were suspended in the evening because of fading light. We cannot do anything further as it is too dark, he told AFP, adding a full investigation would be carried out and some survivors were receiving medical treatment. He said we will resume the search at first light in the morning for the other 4 people. A local border guard said among the missing were 2 children. He said chances of them being found alive are small. He also said there had been rough weather, strong winds, and big waves in recent days. Vietnam's domestic tourism industry rebooted in early February at the beginning of the Tet traditional Lunar New Year after shutting down during strict coronavirus lockdowns and restrictions last year. Hoi An's sandy beaches and beautiful architecture are a draw card for both local and international travelers.
At least 17 people are feared dead after a landslide trapped dozens of workers inside a Myanmar jade mine, sources in local media said Tuesday. The incident came on Monday evening near the Pakan Township in northern Kachin State, the same region where a massive landslide in 2020 entombed 300 workers in the country's worst ever mine disaster. A local source said 17 bodies were found so far, but AFP was unable to independently confirm these figures. The source added that mine owners Yangon Technical and Trading Corporation, a firm linked to country's military, which took power last year in a coup that sent the country into turmoil, had so far prevented rescue teams from entering the area. Local media and sources in the area said that 40 people were buried in the landslide, which struck around 10:30 in the evening. Dozens died annually while working in Myanmar's highly lucrative but poorly regulated jade industry, which uses low-paid migrant workers to scrape out a gem highly coveted in neighboring China. Jade and other abundant natural resources in the country's north, including timber, gold, and amber, have helped finance both sides of a decades-long civil war between ethnic Kachin insurgents and the military.
And a landmark UN report said the time had nearly run out to ensure a livable future for all, detailing a horrifying atlas of human suffering and warning that far worse was to come. Take a look.
Every year, we have, I would say, between 20 and 40 million people displaced by extreme climate events. And every year, this number is twice or thrice the size of the number of people displaced by conflicts and violence. So there is a real pressing need to develop policy responses to protect the rights of those people.
The 7th ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC Dialogue, took place online at 17th of February to discuss the findings and recommendations in the ASEAN Business Sentiment Study 2020-2021, which gauge ongoing sentiment of the ASEAN indigenous enterprises towards the implementation of the AEC Blueprint 2025. Take a look.
The establishment of the ASEAN Economic Community, AEC, in 2015 has opened up numerous business opportunities for the regional community, with its vision of ASEAN as a single market and production hub characterized by the free flow of goods, services and investments, as well as a more liberal movement of capital and skills. As the AEC continues to mature, opportunities arise for enterprises looking to expand in or into the ASEAN market. As such, regular pulse checks on the integration efforts are crucial to ensure that the targeted objectives are met on timely fashion, as well as identifying challenges that may be a hindrance to achieving the objectives. The ASEAN Secretariat commissioned the ASEAN Business Sentiment Survey 2020-2021 to gather insights on the AEC implementation from the viewpoints of the ASEAN indigenous enterprises, which forms the backbone of the business ASEAN community. This study aims to gather insights and recommendations from ASEAN indigenous enterprises on the following: the perceived impact of ASEAN economic integration under the AEC on their businesses and industries. To delve deeper into the sentiment on services trade liberalization. To understand how ASEAN can further develop and improve regional economic integration. Indigenous enterprises' feedback on AEC implementation was gathered through the following key activities: a survey across 1,115 indigenous enterprises, key informant interview (KII) sessions held with senior leaders of 106 indigenous enterprises, and 29 workshops with 248 representatives from indigenous enterprises, the financial sector, distribution sector, and tourism sector. ASEAN's greater economic integration was driven by the formation of an integrated platform cohesive to offset domestic challenges in most of the AMS. The growth is supported through the Trade Facilitation Strategic Action Plan, which oversees the 7 strategic objectives. Encourage the accelerated implementation of trade facilitation measures which have been accepted by international institutions such as the World Trade Organization, WTO, and/or the World Customs Organization, WCO. Achieve competitive, efficient, and seamless movement of goods within the region to enhance ASEAN's trade and production networks, better participate in global value chains, and establish a highly integrated and cohesive economy. Put in place an effective and responsive regional approach to efficiently address the trade-distorting effect of NTMs with a view to pursuing legitimate policy objectives while reducing cost and time of doing business in ASEAN. Actively engage the private sector with particular emphasis on the development and promotion of micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs. Enhance the institutional coordination among the relevant sectorial bodies of ASEAN to effectively implement the trade facilitation measures under their respective purview, consistently with their sectorial work plans for 2016 to 2025 and the ASEAN Blueprint 2025. Work towards increasing the participation of all AMS, especially the less developed AMS, in the process of implementation of ASEAN trade facilitation programs. Improve the monitoring mechanism for the implementation of trade facilitation measures with a view to increasing their effectiveness and responsiveness in improving the competitiveness of ASEAN industries and businesses. Insights from this study formed 4 key messages. Indigenous enterprises in general have a positive outlook on AEC. They acknowledged the positive impact created through various AEC trade liberalization initiatives which supported their business growth and performance. Majority of the indigenous enterprises are pleased with the current integration level and that they look forward for further enhancement and expansion of the integration initiatives. Indigenous enterprises wish to have better access to the comprehensive information repository of AEC policies and programs. They are poised to support and increase their regional investment participation if they have better comprehension of the prospects and opportunities to be derived through AEC. Indigenous enterprises in their services sector wish to see more improvement in the standardization of regulations and procedures. Enterprises from developed AMS have better advantage compared to the less developed AMS. In general, the ASEAN Economic Community 2025 Consolidated Strategic Action Plan, which was updated in 2018, has stipulated various measures as a follow-up of the ASEAN 2025 agenda. However, the indigenous businesses and stakeholders within the 3 services sectors covered, the follow-through is yet to materialize fully as anticipated. Clear actions are needed by all the stakeholders to achieve further liberalization of trade and service. Most notably, ASEAN enterprises need to be clearly informed on the bilateral level decisions and deals that have been made so that they can action upon it. There are 3 action plans that can be followed up upon by both ASEAN Secretariat and each AMS government, which are strengthening the communication and information flow, streamlining an adequate and effective legal framework, digital facilitation and infrastructure improvement, While good progress has been made, more could be done. The ASEAN Business Sentiment Survey 2020-2021 presents 5 recommendations to further liberalize the trade and services in general across ASEAN. Policy transparency and harmonization of standards and regulation. Improve awareness and understanding on the AEC, AFAS and ATISA. Creation of centralized data sharing platform in digital format. Creation of trade dispute settlement framework and common law transaction. Improvement and standardization of labor and professionals mobility process across region for ease of travel and cost efficiency. The success of the AEC is highly reliant on the overall intra-ASEAN investment environment for the ASEAN indigenous enterprises. The participation and involvement of the private sector are crucial to creating a solid foundation for the successful implementation of the ASEAN Economic Community, AEC. As such, it is imperative that insights and the result of the study will be taken into consideration and ultimately fed into ASEAN policy-making processes.
Thank you, Esther, for keeping me company today. But before we go, we'd like to make a quick greetings to our brethren, Iglesia ni Cristo members in the locale of Mayantok, district of Paniki, Tarlac. It is their 83rd anniversary. Happy anniversary po sa inyo. We love you po. Thank you, Esther.
You're welcome, Alma, and happy anniversary. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. I'm Esther Adanga from Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.